In the name of the Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Today we celebrate the martyrdom of Saint Abanub. And Saint Abanub is a child. Is even a preteen when he died. He was not even a teenager. He was 12 years old. We don't know the details of the story. There's a lot of torture and pain in it. And it's very tough to understand how a child in that age will tolerate that much suffering. And we have many cases like this in the Old Testament and the New Testament. There is the stories from the book of Maccabees. In 2nd Maccabees, there is the story of the family who were tortured by the Greeks to abandon the law of Moses. And they were the kids in the family were young. And they endured it, and they died, and they didn't want to leave the worship of the true God. Those we are celebrating in our sanctuarium as martyrs, and we consider them part of the church. They were Jews, and they were pious Jews, but they were before the coming of Christ. We have also the youth, the 3 holy youth in the furnace, who did not want to do what the king asked him to do, to bow down to his statue, because there is a commandment that says do not worship anything but God. You have also Joseph in the Old Testament, who refused to obey the Egyptian woman, the wife of Potiphar. These young men, and you have girls, of course. You have girls, and I think Saint Damiana was a teenager. Saint Damiana maybe was a 15, 16 years old when she was martyred. You have all these youth, young people, that is very amazing to see how strong they are and how courageous in the face of martyrdom and the face of torture. One thing I want to focus on today is, when we talk about young people, the response that Joseph had said to the woman. It always kind of give me a little bit of wonder. I just keep wondering about it. It's amazing what he said. He said, "How can I do this evil thing and sin against the Lord? How can I do this evil thing and sin against the Lord?" Any of those young men, including Saint Abanub today, he would say the same thing. Come and worship our gods and offer incense. He would say, how can I do this evil thing and sin against the Lord? When these people say, when those martyrs, the young people say I, they have an emphasis on that I. When you ask him, what do you mean by I? He said, I'm a precious thing. I'm very valuable. I know my value. I'm not going to trash myself. I'm not going to do anything that I think is immoral or would make me of no value. I am much bigger than that. Sometimes you think, and this is bad actually, to think that this is pride. That's not pride. There's a difference between pride and the self-value. To not have a value in oneself is a sin. It's actually called insecurity. Psychologists would call it insecurity. Or we call it low self-esteem. That is not humility. And don't confuse the two. Humility is not to be thinking better than others when we compare ourselves. So we compare ourselves and say, oh, I'm better, I am a good person. So my value, actually humility, pride means that I don't think much of myself, but I need to compare myself to others to feel better. There's a big difference. So I actually don't feel much about myself. I'm really of no value in my own eyes. So how can I prove myself that I am better than what I'm thinking? trying very hard to prove that by doing what? By going into competition, by competing with others. And by maybe when I prove that I'm better than others, I will think better of myself. None of those martyrs did this. They said something about St. Anthony when he was young. He was still a teenager also, going out in the desert. They said one thing Anthony did never do, that he entered into a competition with any other monk. He never compared himself to how much he fasted, what others, how they fast, how much he prays, while others, how much they pray. Never did this. Monks have a tendency to, like any human being, in sociology, they say this, you compare yourself with the group, with your group. I'll give you an example. Priests compare themselves to priests. Deacons compare themselves to married women, compare themselves to married women, of course. So we compare ourselves to the group, and immediately when we do this, we say we are of no value. We don't really think much of ourselves. We need to prove ourselves. We need to prove ourselves. So that competition makes me feel, and I will tell you something, it's an illusion. It doesn't make anybody feel better. All what it does for a little second, you get a sense of victory, and then what? Back to the same status. And we need more of that. Those never felt this way. I'm going to just give you Joseph, because Joseph is like such a brilliant image. Where does he get this eye? Where does he get this very bright and brilliant eye? Here, he's not proud. He's not proud. He says, "This is not my thing. This is not me. I can't do that." While in this case, people who seek to be approved will go for the relationship. Say, "Oh, this woman thinks something about me. She thinks I'm smart or charming or beautiful or attractive. Let's go for it." That's what happens. When we don't feel that value, we go for the approval. And she's approving him. "Oh, you're so admirable. I want you. I desire you." Who would not go for that? Where is he getting this eye? That really, I don't need you. That's what St. Joseph is saying. Joseph, the son of Jacob, he said, "I don't need you. I'm okay. I'm actually very fine." How can I means he feels above this action. Where is he getting it from? He's getting it from his father. His father had no business but to have Joseph as his attention. His father talked to him about God. His father talked to him about how special he is in the mind of God. He said, "God, come, my son, and visit us." He visited your grandfather Abraham, and he was his friend. God visited your father Isaac, and Isaac saw God, and he visited me. I struggled with him so that you can live, and you live because God is merciful, and he knows you. We are his family. And he tells him stories day and night, and he keeps reciting those stories. What happened after a while? Joseph felt, wow, I'm of a royal race. I am someone who's very special. I'm someone who is not like the Canaanites that we live with. I'm not even like the people that deal with us and we trade with. I'm not like anybody. I am the child of God. And he was very convinced that he is. So when he speaks to the woman, he said, "How can I," and he's relating it, "how can I do this thing and sin against God?" So his father convinced him, "You belong to God. And if you belong to God, there is a certain honor code. You handle yourself differently." And for this reason, I think about that, and I make this shift to Jesus. When Jesus came to the world, he had a very special relationship with his Father. What made him stand all the way to the cross and accept to die in this most heinous death, and accept the slapping and smacking and insulting and mocking? How did he accept all that? In which he had a human nature. He was human. He endured everything like we do. And he didn't help himself. So what really made him to stand that? What sustained Christ? Don't tell me his divinity, because he emptied himself. St. Athanasius had explained to us what that meant. When he hungered, he didn't feed himself. When he was insulted, he didn't comfort himself as God. He didn't. But what did comfort him? The love of his Father. The Father that said to him from the beginning, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." In whom I am well pleased. So we need to know who we are. I like this story of many people, actually. One of them is Victoria, the Queen of England. When she was young and her mother used to use her. She inherited the kingdom of England, the British kingdom, from her uncle. An uncle and mother was not in good terms. Her uncle is his father's brother, and her mother was very much wanting to take over the rule. So the mother was against her, and in early age, she was 16, I think, when she took over the kingdom, when her uncle died. And then her nanny, the one who brought her up, used to tell her every morning, "Victoria, remember who you are." Who are you, Victoria? She is the queen. But her mother treats her like a baby. She wants to control her. But she is the queen. She's treated as a child who doesn't know what they're doing and they're making mistakes. But doesn't mean that she doesn't honor her mother. She did honor her mother. But when it came to doing the business of the kingdom, she could not listen to her mother. She had a prime minister and she had people to deal with. So we need to remember who we are. We need to remember who we are. And every day a person wakes up and say, "Who am I?" You are the child of God. You're born of God. You look at your body and you say, "This body is not mine. It belongs to Christ. I take communion. And Jesus unites himself to me. This body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. I can't defile it. This body is very precious. My hands are precious hands. My mouth is a precious mouth. My ears, my eyes, every single one, my sexual organs are precious because they belong to Christ." Did Jesus have those organs? Yes, he did. Why did he have them? So that when he unites with me, he can sanctify mine. The saints and the martyrs knew this for sure. Because no one can endure what they endured if they did not believe that and they lived it. St. Abanoub today reminds us of that preciousness. Temptation comes when the world and people, usually the closest people, tell us, "You're not important. You're not much. You're disgusting. You're despicable." That's what the people and the world would tell us. And it hurts so much. That's why I was talking in the Bible study about early abuse. When kids get abused in their early life and they get sexual molestation or something like that, it destroys what? Destroys their eye. They can't stand again and say we are precious. It's very tough. It's very tough. And every one of us, when they fail to obey God, most probably at the end, somebody had said to them, "You're not important." And they believed it. When the temptation happened in the garden, the serpent told Eve, "You're not much. You need to eat of the tree." He knows, and the serpent said it to the woman. He knows, God knows, when you eat from that tree, you will be much. But because you didn't eat from the tree, you're not much. You're not important. You're insignificant. And he doesn't want you to be important, so he doesn't want you to eat from the tree. There's always that temptation. There's always that temptation. And we fail when we swallow it. Usually controls the human mind and the heart. And I think that's our fight. We need to fight and say, "No, Jesus think of me very highly. Otherwise he wouldn't offer himself to me as bread to eat. He thinks of me very highly because he personally come to me and lives in me. He thinks too much of me because he sent his spirit to live in me. I can't believe the world. I can't believe the serpent. And this is the spirit of martyrdom. We call them martyrs. Martyrs in martyria, martyrdom. Martyr in Greek means what? A witness. What they are witnessing for? They're witnessing for the love of God, the love of Christ. That He loved them so much, and He thought of them very highly and honored them by dying for them and living in them. Not only dying, don't stop there, but going and living in them. And when they believed that, they were willing to do the same and say, He loved us so much, we cannot deny Him. We cannot deny Him. We cannot deny all that love. We cannot deny all that preciousness that He put in me. I cannot deny it. How can I do this? How can I, that very special I that God gave us? To Him is the glory, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and forever. Amen.